Tony Nadal just said the quiet part out loud. The Ferrero-Alcaraz split was never about tennis. And the man who didn't push for the breakup, according to Nadal, wasn't Ferrero at all. It was Carlos. 6 months after the breakup, Ferrero is telling Italian journalists it would be wonderful to coach Jannik Sinner. Tony Nadal, watching all of it from the outside, says it's impossible Ferrero was let go without Alcaraz's own hand in the decision. Sinner's camp already sent Ferrero a message after the split, not a contract, a condolence. And somewhere in Murcia, Carlos Alcaraz is training for the US Open with a different coach in his box, saying almost nothing about any of it. If Nadal is right about who actually ended this partnership, comment below who you think really pulled the trigger. Now let's go back to where the cracks started. 7 years, 24 titles, 6 Grand Slams. Ferrero met a 14-year-old in Villena who hit drop shots that had no business being hit and built him into a world number 1 before he turned 20. This wasn't a transactional coaching arrangement. This was a partnership the entire sport pointed to as proof that a calm, methodical veteran and a chaotic, joyful teenager could build something neither could build alone. Wimbledon 2023, beating Djokovic in 5 sets. The Channel Slam in 2024. A 2025 season that ended with Alcaraz back at world number 1 after the longest French Open final in tournament history. Every camera in tennis pointed at the box, and Ferrero was in it, nodding. But Tony Nadal had been watching something else the whole time. He's on record saying that at the top of the men's game, a decision of this size doesn't happen in isolation. That responsibility for something like this is always shared, never sat in one chair alone. Then came December. The split was announced suddenly, right before the 2026 season, off the back of Alcaraz's best year as a professional. No build-up the public could see. Tony Nadal said it himself. He was surprised, because by every measure that matters on a tennis court, Alcaraz had every reason to stay exactly where he was. So Nadal looked past the surface. He said the reasoning had to sit somewhere other than tennis, and that he doubted it was about money either. What he landed on was simpler and more uncomfortable, that this was Alcaraz's call as much as anyone's, because the player carries the loudest voice in any room he's paying to be in. Here's the detail that makes it land. Ferrero didn't fight to stay. He said publicly that doors shouldn't be slammed shut, that he'd work with Carlos again at some point, that there's no bitterness on his end. A man who wanted to be fired doesn't talk like that. A man who got pushed out gently by a player he raised from age 14 talks exactly like that. And on the other side of the net, completely unbothered by any of it, Jannik Sinner. No documentary baggage, no Ibiza headlines, just 6 Masters titles and a number 1 ranking reclaimed in straight sets. While Alcaraz's team was managing a coaching transition, Sinner's team was quietly sending Ferrero a one-line message of respect. Nothing more. Professional, brief, and exactly the kind of restraint that makes Ferrero's eye wander in his direction. Which brings us back to the word everyone's repeating. Wonderful. That's what Ferrero called the idea of coaching Sinner, the player his entire 7-year system with Alcaraz was quietly built to beat. He's been careful to say nobody from Sinner's camp has reached out. He's also been careful to leave the door wide open if they did. So here's the actual question underneath all of it, the one Nadal's comments force you to ask. If Alcaraz really was the one steering this decision, then Ferrero's wonderful isn't a betrayal at all. It's a coach who got let go by the player he built, quietly admitting he'd still like a seat in tennis somewhere, and the rival's box happens to be the one with an opening. Carlos Alcaraz has said almost nothing about any of this since the split, and Tony Nadal's read is still just a read, not a confirmation from inside the camp. Whether Alcaraz ever explains what really happened in that room in December, or whether Ferrero ever actually ends up in Sinner's box, is a question 2026 hasn't answered yet. If Nadal just changed how you see this split, let me know in the comments, and subscribe so you're here the moment either side finally talks.